Briefly, I think one of the things that's important to, before I recognize my colleague, to acknowledge is that to have such a broad and vague provision in what qualifies as promotion includes research, and one could argue primarily affects scientific research to prevent us from actually having the evidence to assess these substances for what they are. And currently, much of the research that's being conducted right now is reliant on private funding, or the stigma associated and fear and the chilling effect associated with having these provisions on the books, which are largely unnecessary, prevents such critical research from being funded. And I would also like to yield 2 minutes to my colleague, Representative Correa of California.
I also rise in strong support of this measure, and I also have the veterans is very near and dear to my heart. 15 years ago, I started my quest to help veterans deal with those invisible wounds that they bring back from the battlefield, PTSD and other mental issues that they bring back with them and carry with them on a day-to-day basis. As the chair of the California Veterans Affairs Committee, I held hearings, and I kept getting veterans saying, we prefer cannabis to opioid medication. We want the VA to give us cannabis. We don't want opioids. And I soon discovered that there was no medical research anywhere to determine what cannabis was good for and what it was not good for. Today, as a member of Congress, I have attempted to pass legislation year after year mandating that the VA do research, conduct research into the medical benefits of cannabis, and we've scored 0. This amendment is simple. It's about saying, let's do medical research into the benefits of cannabis and other drugs that our veterans are taking that they say are good for them. Let's not take away from our veterans the ability to have the medications they prefer. I strongly support this measure. Let's do it for our veterans. Let's do it for their welfare. Let's do it for scientific research. Please support this measure. With that, I yield.
I reserve.
New York reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you. And, I appreciate the passion and the articulate response of my colleague. I've had the honor to serve with him, and we agree on the vulnerability of veterans. In fact, a year plus ago, when we tried to move the Improve Act through the Veterans Affairs Committee and to try to look at different ways to provide opportunities to bring veterans into the VA healthcare system so we could identify them and treat their addiction. And it wasn't about necessarily the research of the product. It was the research of the veteran as a whole, the veteran's vulnerability. And I'll tell you, it was painful in the committee setting to have the Improve Act disapproved at the time when at the same time that same committee authorized equine therapy. So as Dr. Phil Rowe said at the time, this is a first for the Veterans Affairs Committee. We have not allowed people to treat veterans, but we are allowing horses to treat veterans. The point is, we are looking to do something here via this amendment that does not solve an existing problem. We need to have the outreach, the research, but we also need to have the human side to make sure that we connect all the dots for the betterment of the veterans' mental health. And with that, I reserve.
Reserves. The gentlelady from New York is recognized.
Thank you. And with acknowledgement of that point, and I think many of us have a shared outcome and a shared goal here, which is to help people who are hurting. Right now, more than 40,000 people die in the United States of opioid overdoses annually, and at least 1 in 2 PTSD patients cannot tolerate or do not respond adequately to existing treatment. We have promising indications that certain drugs that are frankly unjustly, in my opinion, placed on the Schedule I list have promising outcomes for people who are suffering from PTSD, including our veterans. We have to have the research in order to develop these holistic, whole-person treatments. That research deserves to be in the realm of the public. That research deserves to be eligible for public funding, and a blanket, vague ban that was born out of fear and the paranoia of the war on drugs should not be defining the limits of our ability to act responsibly today. I reserve my time.